Hey guys, welcome back to While You Were Cleaning. Today I have 3 more Dollar Tree fall DIYs to share with you. All of today's DIYs have a little bit of an elevated country fall feel to them. There are a lot of classic fall colors with the mustard yellows and the orange and the green, and I feel like just these 3 DIYs just kind of elevate those colors a little bit and just make them a fresh new way for you to use those classic colors in your home for your fall decorating. So let's go ahead and get into these DIYs. First off, today we're going to make a wreath, and I am going to use the middle size wreath from this 3-pack that I picked up from Dollar Tree. And then I'll also be using 2 packages of this raffia that I picked up there as well. Once you unwrap the raffia roll, that's like a tongue twister, but it has these natural bends in it, and so we're just going to work with those. So you just want to have a bend in the center and then 2 kind of tails sticking out from that. Then I'm going to use some of this floral tape, and I'm just going to use that to hold on one side of that raffia down, and then we'll just go ahead and finish it off just holding both sides down. So you can see it kind of holds it on in that loop, and that'll keep the raffia from sliding one way or the other and falling out. It just holds it in place a little bit better. I started off by just using this floral tape to hold it in place, and then later on you'll be able to see I do use some wire there to initially hold it in place instead. I feel like that just made it a little bit more secure and just made sure that this wasn't going to be falling off of my wreath form. If you are not able to find these wreath forms, there are other wreaths that you could use there at Dollar Tree as well. You could use one of the thicker wreaths like a willow wreath. You might end up needing a little bit more of the rolls of raffia, or you could just take one of the metal wreath forms there in the store and cut those apart. As I was working my way around this wreath, I did add some hot glue in between each of the sections. What I did was I just lifted up one of the sections, added some hot glue onto where that floral tape was, and then just went ahead and pushed it down. It's not going to hold all the pieces down, but it'll just keep them from slipping one way or the other, just keep them going with that curve of the wreath. And here I'll show you how I use the wire instead of that floral tape for the initial tie down of this. I did add the wire just on one side inside of that loop. Again, that keeps the raffia paper from moving one way or the other, and then I used it again to hold down the whole section to the wreath, and then I just went ahead and used that floral tape around the end, and that just helps hold all of that raffia together and keeps it just all going in one direction. I used my pliers in between each section to make sure that wire was nice and tight, and then again went through with my hot glue gun just to make sure that everything just stayed nice and put and going in the same direction. I had bad lighting today for filming, so I went ahead and just propped it up here so that you could see it, how it looks all finished, but it looks great hung on the wall or added to a shelf. I really like the nice country feel to this wreath and how simple it is. You could add a bow as well if you would like. Next, we're going to put together a piece of pumpkin decor, and I'm going to use one of these foam pumpkins. Again, I love these white ones that they have in the store this year, but I'm going to be painting this one yellow. So whatever color that you're able to find there in the store, that will work. You don't have to be able to find one of these white ones. And I'm doing a mix of some yellow paint and some baking soda. And that just helps thicken up that yellow paint. It'll make it so it has a little bit of a texture to it, and it'll cover the pumpkin a little bit faster with one coat rather than multiple coats. One coat covered this pumpkin just fine, but I did have some extra paint, so I ended up doing 2 coats. But I'm going to be covering this pumpkin with some yellow yarn, and so that's why I'm painting it with the yellow paint just in case you're able to see between any of the pieces of yarn. I wanted to make sure that you didn't see a different colored pumpkin under there, that it all looked like it all blended together and was all yellow. On the top here, I'm going to be adding a wood piece for a stem. So I just used a little knife there to cut out the size that I needed for this stem. And of course, this Dollar Tree knife decided to fall apart on me partway through cutting out the styrofoam. So I do suggest just using a kitchen knife for this instead. Once I had that hole cut out, I started adding some yellow yarn. This is one that I just already had at my house. They do have some with similar textures there at Dollar Tree. And of course, use whatever color of yarn that you would like. It doesn't take very much to cover one of these pumpkins, so just one little bundle of yarn should be fine. I didn't even use all of this one here. Just whatever color you decide to use for yarn to cover your pumpkin, make sure that you paint your pumpkin that color as well, just in case you're able to see any little peaks of the pumpkin between these strands of yarn. I decided to wrap the yarn around this pumpkin in some smaller sections. You could just continuously wrap the yarn around, but doing the smaller sections just helps you to be able to control where the yarn goes better, and it was just a little bit easier to work with that way. Whenever you end a section, you want to go ahead and cut apart your yarn right there at the hole that you added where your stem's going to go later on, and then just go ahead and hot glue those end pieces down just to keep them from coming apart. And like I said, it did not take very much yarn to cover this. My bundle of yarn was 50 yards and it took maybe half of it. Next step, you will add your stem to the top there. You can glue this in place, but it does hold in place nice and tight depending on how you cut the hole in the top. And then you can add any sort of little floral pieces to the top. I'm just going to add a couple of these little eucalyptus stems. They came off of a bigger branch from Dollar Tree. And here's how that pumpkin turned out. I really love how this pumpkin looks. I like the nice sweater, warm, cozy feel to it. Next, we're going to put together a garland, and I picked out 5 different colors of yarn from the yarn section there at Dollar Tree, and these are just regular worsted yarn, and I'm going to be making pom-poms out of them. So I wrapped it several times around a card and then tied it there at the top. Then you want to cut it just on one end, and then normally I would wrap those little yarn pieces back down into my yarn, but I want to use those so I can tie them onto my garland. So I left those hanging out, and then I went ahead and wrapped some yarn around the center of this and tied it together. So it almost looks like a little person with a head there at the top, and then all those little yarn pieces hanging down. I used this olive green color, and then I also used a burgundy color, and I'll show you the rest of the colors here as I go. I show you one of each. Also, I would normally just tie one strand to finish off the top part of this pom-pom, but I really like the way it looks wrapping several strands around the top and then tying that in place. It gives the pom-pom a little bit of a chunkier feel to it. In general, I did make these pom-poms a little bit bigger than what I normally do, so I probably wrap them around that card at least twice as many times as I would normally do for a pom-pom of this size, and I just really wanted them to have a good deal of volume to them. Next in colors, I did do that mustard yellow, and then I did a brown shade. And also each time that I finished a pom-pom, I went ahead and trimmed off any extra little pieces that might have been hanging out the bottom there. Lastly, I did a pom-pom in this orange color. This is a little bit of a more muted orange color. It's not very bright, and it does show up a little bit different when you see it in different lighting. I did 2 of each color of these pom-poms, and then I'm going to be attaching these onto one of the beaded garlands that I picked up in with the fall decor this year at Dollar Tree. If you can't find these beaded garlands, go ahead and add these onto some twine, or you could also string some of the other wooden beads there at Dollar Tree together. I alternated the colors of my pom-poms, and I started 4 in from the outside end of the beaded garland, and then I counted 10 beads between each of these pom-poms that I tied onto the garland. Lastly, to finish off this garland, I used some wire or my fingers, and I stuffed those little yarn pieces that I used to tie the pom-pom onto the garland. I put them back down through the center to hide them out of the way. Here is how that garland turned out, and I really love this project. I think it's a great way to bring in a lot of classic fall colors, but just give it a little bit of an updated look. Let me know down in the comments which of these Dollar Tree fall DIYs was your favorite and maybe one that you plan on recreating. I love to see your comments each week. Thank you for joining me for today's video. Can't wait to share with you more DIYs in the future. Make sure if you want to keep up to date on all of my Dollar Tree shopping videos and DIYs that you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. Bye!